Okay. This is everyone. Rachel, ready to go?
Yep,
All right.
ready to go.
Cool. Take us off, Tracy.
Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I'm Tracy Smith. I'm your facilitator. Our meeting today will be from 6 to 8 o'clock. And we'll move forward now to the agenda. We'll move forward to the virtual participation checklist. This committee meeting is open to the public. The public will be invited to have comments around 6:05. We have quite a few people signed up to give public testimony, and it will help me if you stick to the 2 minutes. When you hear me come on and say thank you, it'd be great if you stop talking at that point. There will be a break around 7 p.m. and there will be no online discussion during that break. Our guidelines for today, the chat box, please make sure you introduce yourself and say hello. All other times, the chat box is host only for PCEF staff. For committee members and presenters only, please use the raised hand function. In terms of the video, this meeting is being recorded for the committee presenters and those providing public comment. And just to clarify, when you're providing public comment, you feel free to come off the video. All members of the public are muted. Again, this meeting is recorded and there's closed captioning. Our agenda for the evening is, as I said, 6:05 public comment. At 6:25, we'll be reviewing and approving the meeting minutes. At 6:30, there will be program updates. At 6:45, there's a discussion on collaborating for climate action funding opportunity and recommended proposals for advancement. That is an action item. And just to clarify, an action item means that the committee will be taking a vote. At 7 o'clock, we'll have a 10-minute break. When we come back at 7:10, we'll resume with the collaborating for climate action funding opportunity and recommended proposals for advancement. And then we will close out at 8 o'clock. So at this point, I would like to start off with introductions. As I said, I'm Tracy Smith, the facilitator. I would like to start off with our newest committee member, and that's Tracy Scott. Tracy, if you can come on here and introduce yourself, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Scott. I am so honored to be a new committee member. I have a long history, professional history actually, of working with what I am calling communities that have been marginalized by the public process in St. Louis, Missouri, about 15 years of that work. And currently, I have about 18 years working in the clean energy space. I am the Director of Energy for Energy Trust of Oregon. And I'm just thrilled to be a part of the committee. So thank you so much, Tracy.
Welcome. And Tracy, they'll be confusing the two of us. I'll hear your name and I'll be like, no, that's not meant for me. So we're going to work it out.
Right. Thank you so much.
Next, Paul.
Good evening, everyone. Paul Lumley. I'm a committee member.
Robin.
Good evening, everybody. Robin Wang, committee member. Hope everybody's staying cool.
Faith.
Hello, everyone. Faith Graham, committee member. Really happy to be here.
Maria.
Participant, committee member, they, she. I believe this is my last meeting.
Okay. All right. And D'Angelo.
Good evening, everybody. D'Angelo Moaning, committee member. Glad to see everyone in the room.
All right. Ranfis.
Hi, everyone. Rain Feast, Gentino Viatoro, he, him, committee member.
All right, and I'm just going down my list to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself and your team?
I was like, did I pause for a second? I think we got Alicia.
Oh, Alicia, I don't see her. Okay, Alicia, please come on. I'm sorry.
I'm here. Hi, Tracy. Hi, everyone. Alicia Chapman, committee member.
Thank you.
Sam?
I'll take it on from here. Thank you. Sam Barrasso, PCEF staff member and program manager, he, him pronouns. I'll send it to James.
James, your mic isn't great. If you could do that one more time, please. Right, we can't hear you. So Rachel, I'll move on to you for introduce yourself.
All righty. Hi, everyone. Rachel Gilmore, she, her pronouns, PCEF staff.
All right. Well, everyone knows James while he's working on his audio. We'll move now to public comment. And again, if you have an interest in providing public comment, please raise your hand or indicate your interest through the Zoom chat function. For those joining the meeting by phone, please enter *9 on your phone to indicate your interest in providing public comment. As I said earlier, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. That will be greatly appreciated. And I'm going to kick it off. I have a list of, like I said, 14 names. I'm going to start with Dave White. Is there Dave White on the call? All right, no Dave, let's move on to Willie Levinson. And I'll say in advance, if I don't pronounce your name correctly, I apologize in advance. But now moving on to Willie Levinson. Okay, no Willie. How about a Patty Reuter?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Patty, welcome.
Hi. I'm Patty Reuter, and I'm former emergency management planner for Portland Office of Emergency Management. A disaster is not the event itself, but the lack of preparation, mitigation, and resilience building by the community and its government. Portland claims to be a multimodal city, but there is an obvious underutilization of the Willamette River as a transportation route, not to mention the lack of service available under extreme circumstances. Frog Ferry is the needed mitigative resource that could be activated in emergency and that would benefit the city on a daily basis. In an extreme heat event or a winter storm, when roads are damaged by the heat or covered in ice or snow or clogged by traffic jams, or if there is a fire and smoke invades neighborhoods, people can get on Frog Ferry and be moved out of harm's way, especially those with breathing, mobility, income, or disability challenges. The establishment of Frog Ferry facilitates accomplishment of many 2021 mitigation action plan items, the 2015 climate action plan, the work of River Renaissance, City Code 1.03.020, and addresses the need of frontline vulnerable communities. From the Climate Action Plan, quote, as we begin to feel the impacts of climate change, climate mitigation and adaptation are becoming increasingly linked to disaster mitigation work, unquote. Frog Ferry is the missing link in the resources that can be called upon in times of need, and it is imperative that this system be built now so that the population knows how to use it. Frog Ferry is not a luxury. It is a necessity for the well-being and the resiliency of our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Next, we have Jennifer Schloming.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Schloming, and I moved to St. John's 2 years ago and worked at City Hall several decades ago. I specifically moved to St. John's because of the diverse population and the proximity to the river and downtown. However, I have been surprised by how long it takes to get downtown and how limited our transit solutions are. I was delighted to learn about Frog Ferry and helped orchestrate a river run last September, giving 140 local residents the opportunity to imagine a commute by ferry downtown. Thank you, PCF, for the $5,000 grant you awarded us. There are many reasons to add river transit to Portland's commuter options, but I'd like to speak specifically about the enormous benefit it would deliver to North Portland's underserved BIPOC business community. St. John's has struggled mightily to recover from the pandemic. Lombard is still awash in a sea of boarded up commercial properties. North Portland streets are littered with vacancies and obvious human despair. It is daily evidence that in spite of the boosters' best efforts, we aren't succeeding yet. Visitors could jump on a ferry from downtown, enjoy the 20-minute river ride to St. John's to come explore the small community that sits at the confluence of the two major rivers. The tourist appeal is considerable. Having folks eager to visit would be a desperately needed game changer for businesses and residents both. Residents would benefit because Frog Ferry would also be a terrific resource for St. John's aging folks who need to get to medical appointments at OHSU. It is speedy, inexpensive at $3.50 per customer, fun, and it's a safe commute to and from downtown. Captain Peter Wilcox's testimony, which you will hear, shows the long-term outsized reduction of greenhouse gases with e-ferry transit. Frog Ferry outperforms most other CO2 mitigation projects and is why so many cities around the world are building out their e-ferry systems. And we could really use the ferry in the event of a disaster, as Patty said. Portland could use a joyful addition.
Jennifer, thank you. You're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have John Furukawa, please.
Hi there. My name is John Furukawa. I'm a business consultant, an investor, and a startup advisor in the area. And today I'm here as a Frog Ferry supporter and a new board member. So last year, I hosted the Portland Ferry Conference at Fresh Consulting's office. Fresh bought my company called Uncorked Studios, and both delivers strategy and design and technology services. So I have a perspective of commercializing innovation. At the Ferry Conference, I learned 3 things I want to share with the committee. One, and most important, an electric passenger ferry service is both feasible and viable. And that second part is often missed in innovation. It's really important that initiatives bear their own weight. We've done feasibility studies drawn from industry experts to determine the feasibility. This is really good. The second thing I want to share is that a new ferry service and the surrounding infrastructure creates regional resilience. When we have a system design, we don't judge it by all the things that are working well. We judge it by how it works when things aren't working well. So that's really important. And I'll keep it short, but Portland needs this. We have a river, it's underused. We have people on the banks, let's bring them together. Frog Ferry is perfectly suited for the climate investment plan. It is decarbonized transportation. It displaces cars on the road and all the carbon they generate, and it adds a transportation resource that on a normal day gives people a green option, and on a bad day, it saves lives. So please invite us to apply for the Collaborating for Climate Action Grant. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next is Juan Carlos.
Hello. Yes. So I'm also here to talk about the Frog Ferry. I live in Cathedral Park, and I am on the board of St. John's Neighborhood Association. And I haven't met a single neighbor who thinks that this is not a great idea. We live on the far end of the city, and just to get downtown, it takes an hour if you catch the bus like right on time. Like if you just missed it, then it's even longer. With the Frog Ferry, could be reduced to 25 minutes, that commute. Also, the city, as if you haven't noticed, is built for cars and is therefore structurally classist. So this is an opportunity to expand public transportation and my rights to the city as well. And not only for me, but for anyone who can't drive for whatever reason. We deserve a city that is built for people, not for cars. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Captain Peter Wilcox.
Hello, greetings. My name is Captain Peter Wilcox. I'm the executive director of the Inside Passage Decarbonization Project. which focuses on ecosystem-wide marine decarbonizing. And I'm a longtime Portland resident and 6-year Frog Ferry volunteer. Frog Ferry wants to partner with the city and PCEF, which is why we've done the work to prove that clean electric ferries, e-ferries, are feasible here, and that the greenhouse gas or GGE savings from an e-ferry system are substantial. E-ferry system savings strongly outpace most other transportation projects. Which is why so many cities around the world are expanding their operations. Similarly, Frog Ferry's GGE savings are substantial, and Frog Ferry should be advanced as a Collaborating for Climate grant finalist. I have a spreadsheet that I'll give to you that shows the comparison between the total of all the transportation projects and Frog Ferry's emission savings. All of your community responsive grant transportation project finalists together would save approximately 5,500 metric tons of GGEs over the duration of the grants. Well, in the same period, Frog Ferry will save nearly 3 times that amount combined, approximately 14,000 metric tons. Over the lifetimes of the 2 e-ferries put into service through the PCEF grant, Frog Ferry will create approximately 190,000 metric tons of savings. And while available federal grant support can build the rest of the system, including 5 more e-ferries, Frog Ferry can save well over 3 million estimated metric tons of GGEs over the system's 30-year lifespan. We'd love to meet and go over our calculations with you. To truly fight climate change, we have to adopt new and better ways to mitigate for carbon emissions while adding resiliency. Frog Ferry can do both. Please partner with us to find a way forward.
Thank you. Next, we have Jonathan Tassini.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Jonathan, go ahead.
Hi there. Hello. I am a candidate for District 2 for the Portland City Council. I'm a strong advocate for the PCEF in particular, especially to ensure PCEF continues its specific mission chosen overwhelmingly by voters. Now, obviously, I have a special interest in the Frog Ferry as it would especially benefit District 2 with an initial dock established at Cathedral Park. To be additive and not to repeat my colleagues' testimony, all of which I associate myself with, let me just say that as a 5-year neighborhood emergency team member, I think Patty's testimony about emergency response and resilience is really critical. The benefits, I believe, of the ferry will go far beyond just the route. It will send a strong message throughout the city about developing transportation alternatives that encourage people to live car-free and promote walking, cycling, and other transit modes, which has been a big topic of discussion in the current discussion in the campaigns in the city council. And the last thing I'll say is, I promise I commit here, should I be elected, to be the loudest advocate on the city council for the Frog Ferry and be its contact point should the advocates desire and should PCEF see fit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next is Zachary Lauritsen.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Zachary Lauritsen. I'm coming to you from Oregon Walks. I use he, him pronouns. We were part of 2 applications to this round of funding, the Sidewalks to Schools and the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. But I'm actually not here to stump for those 2 awesome applications. What I actually wanted to comment on was process, which maybe is a little boring sounding, but just hear me out here. There's lots of ways to solicit applications for grants. We all know that. But this particular process, I just wanted to share from my little nook of the world, was really inspiring. Because it was this idea is kind of like, tell us your amazing, great ideas. And you got a ton of amazing, great ideas. And it, from my little nook of the world, I've never seen something quite as mundane as a grant application spread like wildfire with the Sidewalks to Schools program. Kids were telling kids, parents were telling parents, neighbors were telling neighbors. And it was just this outpouring of excitement about something that could be tangible, meaningful, climate-oriented, access-oriented in their community. And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to do that. And thank you for the opportunity to kind of have that inspiration, that excitement in our community. And, you know, I'll just stop there. I just want to say thank you for that. It really was, that process was inspiring and meaningful to people in my community and the pedestrian realm. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Next is Jasmine Gordoves.
Hi, good evening, members of the PCEF Committee. My name is Jasmine. I'm a parent of a kid who attends Pellview Elementary. I live in East Portland. I'm a former board member of Oregon Walks, and I help organize a walking school bus for my daughter's school. I'm here to express support and excitement for PBOT Sidewalks to Schools PCEF application. But before I start, I want to acknowledge that today is the first day of school for most kids in East County, and so today, I'm thinking of all of the students and caregivers who walked and rolled to school despite the heat. This application process was amazing to see. When Oregon Walks and PBOTs teamed up to submit an application, it was incredible to see the outpouring of community support for this grant. As I mentioned before, I lead a walking school bus to Paul Butte. Our walk has crosswalks for about half of the route, and that's been a huge deterrent for some families walking with us regularly. Families in my neighborhood are curious about the walking school bus, but often they can't join because they feel like their area is not safe or accessible. The idea of building out sidewalks and crossings, especially in East Portland, is extremely exciting and something that folks all over East Portland would feel and see the benefits of. Complete sidewalks mean that kids are able to walk and roll to school. That means safer streets, cleaner air, healthier children, less greenhouse gas emissions. There are so many wins for our kids. Also, the sidewalks won't just benefit our kids. These are routes that folks like our elders can use to do things like get exercise or walk to the bus. I want to use some of this time to read some words from parents who join us. One parent said, the sweet interactions help me feel good about my child coming to school and feeling included. Another said, I was able to create relationships with more parents. We can partner together to support our children, like carpool or babysit when there's no childcare. One child said, I like the nature and the trees. One child drew this sweet picture. And another child said, I love the walking school bus because I get to walk with my friends, but I wish that there were more sidewalks. Just like our neighbors in Inner Portland, there are also so many of us who walk and roll to school.
Jasmine, thank you. You're at time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next is Susan Bladholm.
Hello, PCEF Committee. My name is Susan Bladholm, and I am the founder of Frog Ferry, which we started in 2017. We've been on a parallel journey with PCEF. In March of 2020, you shared the PCEF draft principles. Several of our supporters were your early supporters. In November of 2020, we applied for a PCEF grant. We were not moved forward because we did not have more than 5 years of experience working with the community. We got 0 out of 15 points. We had 11 people testify, including 3 of our partners with Sunrise PDX. In spring of 2021, we attended PCEF workshops. In August, we were told not to apply because we weren't a good fit. In winter of 2022, we testified in the climate investment plan creation via information sessions. In February of 2023, 6 of us met with your staff, with James Valdez, to provide an overview. In spring of 2023, we participated in workshops and the comment period for the SIP. In April of 2023, we received the $5,000 PCEF grant that Jennifer referenced, which paid for a simulated ferry tour for 140 community members in St. John's and Cathedral Park, and we thank you for that. In February of 2024, we applied for the Community Responsive Grant and were denied, being informed that our application was more appropriate for a planning grant and for us to attend an information session. 3 of us had already attended the info sessions and believed we were a match. In May of 2024, we applied for the Collaborating for Climate Action Plan, only to be told last Thursday that we didn't meet 1 out of the 8 criteria regarding carbon offsets. In our letter of interest, we specifically offered to provide more information about our map of why our numbers are so substantial. Ferries are a proven best practice to fight climate change, and we need to be aggressive in decarbonization. Let's collaborate and build this amazing solution for our community.
Susan, you're at time.
Okay, thank you.
Duncan, and I won't pronounce your last name when you come on. If you'll say your last name for us, please.
Sure. Hi. Good evening, PCEF members. My name is Duncan Huang, and I serve as the Metro Counselor representing Southeast and Southwest Portland. I also have a day job at Apano, a culturally specific org serving primarily Asian Pacific Islander communities in the Jade District and East Portland. I want to start by thanking the committee for developing the Collaborating for Climate Action funding opportunity to solicit big ideas that really advance PCEF's mission. It was a real pleasure to read about the 10 projects you have for you today, and they really reflect what PCEF can accomplish through partnership and collaboration. Today, I'm here to support TriMet and the 82nd Avenue's Coalition's application. One of my great professional honors is co-chairing the 82nd Avenue Steering Committee and planning to bring high-capacity transit to the corridor. I've also been at APANA for about 12 years, and for pretty much that entire time, we've been organizing along the corridor. We hear about the need for safer streets, better transit, affordable housing, and green infrastructure like parks and trees. In recent years, we've had some real wins, including the jurisdictional transfer of the corridor to the City of Portland in 2022. We now have an opportunity to build upon that momentum through this PCEF opportunity to secure the necessary funding to bring FX bus treatment to the corridor. We know this is a workhorse line. It's TriMet's busiest bus line in the whole system, and our community relies on this line to get to work, to school, and to visit their families. This project has near unanimous political support and most importantly, community support. In July of this year, the Federal Transportation Administration awarded $40 million for hydrogen fuel cell buses. And earlier this week, the US DOT awarded $9.6 million more for safety improvements. An investment from PCEF is one of the last pieces of the funding puzzle that will get us to our goal of unlocking the opportunity to get $150 million in FTA capital investment grant funding, which will be part of their FTA Small Starts program for a new transit line. When this project is completed in 2029, our planners estimate this would likely result in a 1.7 million to 2.1 million decrease in annual vehicle miles traveled by 2045. Marginalized and vulnerable populations along the corridor experience.
You're at time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, we have Darlene Sherman.
Hello.
Hi, Darlene.
I can't see myself. Can you see me and hear me?
We can hear you. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
good. Okay. I'm Darlene Sherman. I am a volunteer with the 350 PDX Climate Justice Policy Team. And I just wanted to talk in general about the collaborating for climate actions. And I think this was a really good solution of allowing government and city bureaus to partner with community organizations to meet PCEF goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and supporting the vulnerable population. So I really appreciate how this is developed. With the 10 projects that you've selected to talk about tonight, it still looks like it's about 3 times the funding available if all of those projects were fully funded. So I would suggest that, and those that are selected, it may be all of them or a portion, to do full applications, that those applicants look at ways that they could seek other funding to match or to do it as a phase 1 and seek additional funding because there just isn't enough now. And also for PCEF to consider something in a like 2 or 3 year time frame to have a second round, and the ones that were funded could seek additional funding at that point, particularly if they show what kind of match that they have been able to secure or applying for from other sources. So thank you very much. Appreciate the process.
Thank you, Darlene. Next is Stacy Michelson.
Yeah, hi, all. Members of the committee. For the record, my name is Stacy Michelson, and I am the Government Affairs Administrator for Centennial, David Douglas, Park Rose, and Reynolds School Districts, as well as Multnomah Education Service District. In partnership with PPS, these districts work together to submit a joint letter of interest for the Collaborating for Climate Action funding opportunity. We know that many students move across the various district boundaries over the course of their K-12 education, so we see it as a matter of equity to ensure that all districts in our city are able to make investments in the energy efficiency and weather resiliency of their buildings. While each district identified specific priorities in the LOI, the overarching approach toward reducing carbon emissions in a way that also creates positive impacts on the thermal comfort and air quality of our schools and learning opportunities for our students. Which is to say, the bulk of the work would be focused on improving the energy efficiency of HVAC systems that are roughly a half-century old and making building envelope improvements, as well as greening schoolyards. With our joint proposal, we can ensure that facilities and sustainability staff across these districts are sharing expertise and resources to move the dial for students all across Portland. Students in East Portland just returned to school this week, so this is an exciting time to learn that our proposal is being suggested for full application. I unfortunately have prior commitments and cannot stay to watch the full discussion this evening, but I do want to jump on to thank the committee for this funding opportunity and also for the opportunity to come before you tonight to express our enthusiasm for this work. The projects funded by PCEF, whatever they may be, will truly be transformational for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm Stacy. And next is Lisa Merrick.
Good evening, members of the PCEF Committee. My name is Lisa Merrick, and I serve as the Government Relations Manager at Portland Public Schools. I use she, her pronouns. We are grateful to be included as one of the staff recommended projects for the Clean Energy Funding category. PPS joined MESD, as my colleague Stacy Michelson just stated, in submitting a letter of interest that highlighted meaningful investments and facilities upgrades we can make to improve public schools across the Portland metro area. In 2022, PPS passed a first of its kind climate crisis response policy to address climate change and historic climate injustices. Our proposed projects for the PCEF funds represent a major step toward meeting many of our ambitious goals. They will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, electrify gas-fired building systems, increase energy efficiency, increase shade trees and green infrastructure, create meaningful pathway for student and teacher engagement with climate solutions, and build climate resiliency and equity into our schools. Portland Public Schools plans to select sites for this project based on a number of factors, including but not limited to the percentage of underserved students at our eligible schools, the Multnomah County Heat Vulnerability Index, geographical diversity to help serve communities across the city, the opportunity to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the opportunity for climate change adaptation and resilience, and schools that are not currently scheduled for major upgrades or modernizations through our bond program. With the unprecedented heat our region is currently experiencing, this potential PCEF grant could not be more timely. We urgently need to make upgrades to our schools to ensure that all our students have access to cool and safe learning environments. Thank you, PCEF Committee, for recognizing the importance of investing in climate resilient buildings that serve our students today, and for the opportunity for schools to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for our students' futures.
Thank you. The last public comment is from James Paulson.
Hello, my name's James Paulson, and I am the board chair for Frog Ferry. And you guys have had an opportunity to hear from a number of our just inspiring and motivated volunteers that are really trying to move the Frog Ferry forward. The Frog Ferry is the most innovative transportation system addition that we've had since we've introduced the MAX. And I remember as growing up here, the MAX being introduced when I was in high school. That's how long ago that was. We were in need of this type of funding. This is an opportunity for us to really move Portland forward. We've heard about all the wonderful things that would come from a ferry, and we've talked a little bit about the funding that we'd be able to bring from the federal government outside the area to help move this forward. The thing that we have to think about is we need to think about tomorrow. We need to think not just about today. Is if we bring a ferry system to our rivers, to our river system, that ferry system the benefits of it will only increase, whether it's reduced carbon emission, greater access to jobs. As we look at the waterfront and the development of that, that more and more people are going to need to access that water system. And right now, that is very limited. We are very limited in how we're accessing that. And that's where the Frog Ferry makes a huge difference. You've heard from all different aspects of the Frog Ferry, all of which are a community good. This is something that the whole region would benefit from, not just a select few. And right now we are at a point where we have funding that's never been available. We need to apply that funding to the most innovative transportation addition we've had in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Again, thank you to all public members for sharing public comment with us. You made my job real easy. You're very cooperative. So I thank you a lot for adhering to the 2 minutes. We are running a little bit behind, so I'm going to move us forward and the approval of the meeting minutes, and that includes February 15th, February 28th, March 21st, May 16th, and June 3rd. As Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you in terms of, do we approve all of them at once or individually?
I think that makes, given that these are the meeting minutes, I think that makes sense if folks have had a chance to review them and are ready to go ahead and make that decision.
All right. So I need to have, so Sam, I just want to make sure we're voting on all of these collectively.
Correct.
All right. Do I have a committee member who wants to make a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, Paul?
Actually, Ralph has had his hand up first.
Okay, I'm just reading the screen. I don't see. Okay, Ramfis?
Yeah, I'm happy to and ready to make a motion what's on the screen, unless Paul, you want to have a question in, but yeah, I make the motion to approve the meeting notes as displayed in the screen. That includes February 15th, February 28th, March 21st, May 16th, and June 3rd, 2024. So that's my motion.
Paul, would you like to second, or did you have a comment?
A little bit of both. I would like to second and also make a request that we have minutes presented on a more regular basis so they don't come in a big stack like this, which is a little bit of a challenge to read. I do appreciate staff's contributions in these meetings, so I understand how hard it is to stay on top of things, but as a committee member, approving minutes as a regular standing item in all meetings would be helpful.
All right, thank you, Paul. So we have a motion, and the motion has been seconded. At this time, I'm going to ask, is there any discussion from committee members? All right, I'll call committee members by name for a vote. Paul?
Yes.
Ramfis?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
D'Angelo?
Affirmative.
Faith?
Yes.
Maria?
I'm abstaining. I didn't review them.
All right, I believe the minutes have been approved. Sam, will you confirm that, please?
Correct.
All right. So moving on to program updates. And we have the RFP number 3 at City Council, staff recruitment updates, PCEF committee recruitment, CIP implementation milestones. And the last update is on the update on 2024 city climate projects coming to the committee for feedback.
Okay, we've got a long list. I'm going to try to move faster through this, but the first of which is just RFP 3. This is our 3rd community responsive grant round, but the first since the climate investment plan has been adopted, and that heads in front of City Council tomorrow afternoon. And it's an exciting project of about, I know we've briefed committee members on this, and in some ways this is for members of the public, but there's 71 projects in there, totaling about close to 92 million in funding in funding awards that are scheduled to come before council tomorrow evening. And so we're now geared up, and I think the staff recruitment updates will speak to how we're situated to both capture these projects and turn around and get them moving on the other side. But this is just another major milestone. And as you all know, there is good bit of pent-up demand as we did take a year pause as we retooled the program, developed a climate investment plan. So we're excited to bring that in front of City Council. And so for folks that want to chime in, take a look, that's going to be tomorrow afternoon. More and importantly, and I think the second update here is just we have a whole host of staff recruitments and that have been going on for the better part of the past year, and they're landing. And so we've onboarded a couple different project managers on our team, both August Burns as well as Seth Lowe, a few weeks ago, not quite a month ago, but a few weeks ago. Next week, we bring on board 4 project managers as well onto the project implementation team, as well as Katie Lister's replacement. So our next deputy program manager, Kenny Asher, will be starting with us next Wednesday. So just incredibly excited to have that slate of folks. Later in the month, we bring on our data systems and performance manager, who will be starting up with us on September 25th. And then we're working pretty feverishly to lock down a couple more recruitments that are in play, both for a couple of communications positions on our team, as well as our external affairs manager. So there's just been a whole host of recruitments, adjustments. Our team, for the better part, has gone from about a staff of 14, 15 to about, by the end of November, we'll be about a staff of 32, 33 folks. So we're both really excited and we're bursting at the seams at the Bureau, but those are just important updates, and we'll share the names once we've settled all that and got folks' bios and had an opportunity, but I wanted to make sure to name that. Additionally, just wanted to share for folks that our committee recruitment is currently out at the moment. And so that'll be open here for another few weeks. We will circle back with you all in a couple of weeks around putting together another recruitment subcommittee to go through that process again. So that's just a notice for you all that we've got that committee application out there in the moment. And then we've been steadily implementing the climate investment plan. As folks have that have stayed and tracked with us, we've been busy at City Council through the better part of late spring and summer, and now having gotten City Council approval to move forward with our RFPs for various programs, we're working through that, and we expect our largest of our RFPs that is anticipated on the climate investment plan for strategic program number 3, separate from RFP 3, but for our single family clean energy and single family homes program to get on the streets here ideally later this month, early October. So we've been busy doing a roadshow and making sure that folks across different sectors are aware of the opportunity. And we've had really wonderful support from our staff at the procurement team and making sure that we're getting the word out about those opportunities. The next ones that'll follow is our RFP for our capacity building program and bringing on some capacity building consultants to support our capacity building cohort, as well as our RFP for strategic program number 6 within the CIP, which is focused on e-bike accessibility and distributing and incentivizing, providing incentives for e-bikes. So that'll be the next one up. So those are all on the heels of each other. Additionally, we recently, as of last week, at least on the Prosper Portland side, have executed an intergovernmental agreement with Prosper Portland to support some of the administration of a handful of the climate investment plan programs as well. And we're working on now moving forward and designing some of those programs. And so you'll start to see that Prosper Portland is now recruiting for at least one position associated with supporting some of that program implementation. The specific positions focused on supporting implementation of strategic program number 4, which is focused on clean energy and small commercial buildings. So those are, I'm sure I'm missing plenty of the CIP implementation milestones, but those are just some of the ones recently that we've been quite busy at consistently making sure they're moving forward. And then last, and this is really just, I know several committee members have asked about this. In your October committee meeting, we've been equally busy working with our city colleagues, particularly for the projects that were recommended for funding earlier this year. We're calling them the 2024 City Climate Projects. We've been working with them and hashing out our programmatic agreements. And so we will be bringing those back to you all for feedback in October, and expect that there's a couple of the programs we'll probably do deeper dives and invite you all to join us alongside the staff from those city programs so you can directly connect and hear from those. So formally, we will bring those to you all as a committee in your October meeting to discuss those, but we'll also reach out separately about a couple other opportunities to to individually reach out. And so just big kudos to James and Rachel, who have been shepherding that process along with the city bureaus and getting the information from them. So that, in a really quick run, that summarizes our program updates that we've had. And as you can imagine, there's a whole host that I haven't quite shared, but I feel like those are the key milestones of the past couple months.
All right, does the committee have any comments? All right, we'll move into the next agenda item, and that's discuss collaborating for climate action funding opportunity and recommended proposals for advancement. We will take questions after the last portion, which is after 7:45. So committee members, if you could please save your questions at the end. Ramfi, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I just had a question back to the program updates. Sam, as you're giving the updates about intergovernmental agreements, I know we've discussed in the past with some key language in the past year around just protecting things like salmon and salmonoids. Will we be seeing and reviewing some of those intergovernmental agreements in the future? Is the most recent one with Prosper publicly posted? So just kind of curious.
Yeah. Yes. So the IGA with Prosper is publicly posted, and just to differentiate, the IGA with Prosper was squarely focused on implementing the climate investment plan programs that were previously approved. Related to the 2024 city climate projects, that's where we're speaking to the Water Bureau projects, where you all asked for that additional that additional review. I mean, on all the projects, but the Water Bureau projects were certainly the ones I know you're referencing, Ramphis. That is one of the projects where we will be inviting you all. That's when we talked about bringing you all in and having actually you all just hear directly from the staff, where we might want to kind of step back. We will be reaching out specifically on those and giving committee members an opportunity to sit down with ourselves and Water Bureau staff to learn about how we're approaching that. But that's correct. And those are the programmatic agreements that we expect to bring back to you all for feedback in October. And last thing, and Rachel, thank you for the reminder. We will be reaching out to schedule for that October meeting, because I realize we don't have that on the calendar. But that'll be one of the pieces that we'll be following back up to do.
Thanks,
All right, Sam. Oh, I'm sorry, Ramphis, go ahead.
Oh, no, all I'm going to say is, no, I appreciate the response and then the clarification. It was, I think, I appreciate you highlighting the Water Bureau, because I think it was a very pointed request earlier this year. So yeah, appreciate the response and clarity on all points there.
Hey, Sam, turning it over to you.
Okay, so before I turn things over to James to walk us through the process, just wanted to acknowledge that, as you heard from some of the commenters, the Collaborative for Climate Action came about by certainly the creativity of this body as we work through having surplus funds and how to address those, in a manner that was timely, responsive, and addressing the need to both fund high impact projects in a way that's expedient and addresses both climate needs and real community needs. This is certainly a process where we've learned a lot, and I think as you all will see here shortly, there's clearly a strong appetite for funding at this scale, and yet at the same end, we had 100 and you all heard there's over $2 billion in funding requests for 158 million in total funding availability. And so what you all will see are an incredibly exciting set of projects that we are certainly excited to see, excited to learn more about. And at the same end, I will acknowledge from the outset that this process was, as we designed it, as the committee designed, as we thought through it, as we provided input on it, the scale of it inherently, you'll see that there's going to be more publicly led projects with certainly a large community coalitions and community support. But I think what we took away from it is that, feedback we received is that in order to see in some instances different proposals, in some instances more community centered or community led proposals, we're going to need to think about how do we give folks more lead time? How do we think about these opportunities in the future and make sure that that folks know a year ahead? Because as you will see, generally speaking, For the vast majority of these projects at this scale, we're talking about 30, 40, $100 million projects. These projects have been moving in the hoppers to some extent for some time now. These weren't projects that materialized. Many projects did, but the projects here didn't materialize in solely that span of that 6-week open solicitation period. And so it's some of the notes that we're taking in terms of how do we think about both the success and exciting elements of this, and how do we provide more line of sight as there's clearly a desire for these kind of funding opportunities in the future, and how do we both think about that, plan that, and make sure folks are ready for that. And so I'm sure we'll have much more to share, but I wanted to just both tee off the both appreciations for this, because there was certainly a lot of creativity, but also acknowledge that there's going to be an opportunity to come back to this and think about how do we do this even better next time. And with that, I'll pass things off to James.
All right, and is my audio working? You can hear me. Okay, excellent. And I'll go ahead and introduce myself because I wasn't able to at the beginning. James Valdez, he, him pronouns, on the PCEF team, where I lead a lot of our work on strategic partnerships and policy. And yeah, really great to be with you all today. In the interest of time, I think what we'll do is I'll present the first content about process first, and then we'll take a short break, depending on how much time we have, and then come back to talk about the portfolio proposal. So as Sam said, you as a committee helped stand this program up and really guided the development of Collaborating for Climate Action based on some criteria and values that you want to see. We, as staff, helped create this process based on really prioritizing projects that had high impact and that brought together coalitions of applicants together in a common purpose or common project. Just the high level, criteria pieces that we had going into this process, we have $158 million total of funds to allocate. And we recognize that these were going to be large funding requests. We set that threshold of between the minimum or the floor being $20 million per application, and that applicants could apply to up to $100 million. A really key criteria here is that we were evaluating projects that had to be completed by 2029. That project viability or the ability to implement and fully expend those funds in a timely manner was really important. And so recognizing both the lift that it required to put together an application of this magnitude, we all worked with you and decided on this 2-step process with a letter of intent first and then a full application. And so that's kind of where we are now. We're past the letter of intent, and I'll walk through the exact process steps that we took to get where we are. But just to be clear, the stage that we're at now is really just inviting additional or inviting a pool of applicants to fully submit a full application and then be evaluated in decision for funding. Also, really important was that projects must result in meaningful reduction or sequestration of greenhouse gases, except for workforce development projects, which, consistent with our community responsive grant program, those are evaluated slightly differently. And then there was a criteria that you all worked to develop, that each application must be led by either a nonprofit organization or a government entity, and at least one organization have more than 8 years of experience in conducting engagement in our PCEF party population. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Sam. And so this is just the very high level walkthrough of the steps we took, and I'll walk through in a little bit more detail in a moment. But when we opened that application period that ended in May 17th, we really didn't know how large the demand or the interest out in the community would be. And I will say that we were surprised to receive over 50 projects. We received 55 applications, and that reflected over $2 billion total in requests. The first step that we took as staff was to really determine eligibility, to look through the eligibility criteria that we shared ahead of time as part of the solicitation, and also in consultation with subject matter experts within the city and within our bureaus to understand the viability elements. We then went to initial viability scoring, where we ranked and assessed the viability of the project in terms of key criteria like project team, timeline, a reasonable budget, and then passed a subset of those, the top scoring, most viable projects, to a scoring panel comprised of both committee members, some of you all here, as well as staff, and 18 projects were scored by that review panel. And then those were really the top scoring ones from viability that were brought into that panel. What you have today is then a project portfolio, which is comprised of 10 different projects, the top scoring projects in different funding categories. And the next step is for you as a committee to make a recommendation for advancing those to full application phase. The full application phase, we know, will also be a fairly tight turnaround, though we've messaged this generally throughout the process. And what we anticipate is that later this month, in about a week and a half or so, we would open up an application period, and then applications for the invited organizations would be due in October, November of 2024, which would then give still a fairly short turnaround time for scoring and review to be able to make an award before the end of the year. And so this is the path or the process that we've taken and the path that we're on. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of those project details in a moment, but go ahead and go to the next slide, Sam. And so I just wanted to go back to the beginning of the open period for the letter of intent. We provided some guidance, and we had two different information sessions for interested applicants, and those were pretty well attended. We got a sense of the interest then, but there weren't 55 organizations attending those. But we provided written guidance in the website, as well as in the letter of intent application form that applicants filled out. And the key criteria that we indicated that letters of interest would be evaluated on are really that viability piece. Can the project move forward with clear path and have a clear timeline to be completed by 2029? The project greenhouse gas emissions reduction or sequestration opportunity, elements of the project benefits, who benefits from the implementation of the project, and how does that align with our PCEF party populations, the diversity of the coalition and the strength of that public-private collaboration, if it exists. And we did note that those that are significantly engaging with at least one public partner would be given preference or be given some prioritization. And then community engagement and the approach that the project was taking to doing that was also a key part of how evaluation would happen. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And so based on those elements, that's how we developed the eligibility criteria, and we reviewed the 55 proposals that we got in the door. And then we also sought input from colleagues and subject matter experts that could provide some perspective that didn't necessarily exist solely within the PCEF team. And that included planners especially for projects that involve land use or necessary permitting changes that would be required. And we really wanted to ensure that where those were needed, that those requirements could be met. We also consulted with grant managers within the PCEF team, recognizing that there was some overlap between applicants that had applied for Collaborating for Climate Action and those who have applied or been awarded in previous rounds from RFPs. And so 32 proposals of those 55 met all the minimum criteria for eligibility and were passed through to viability scoring. And then we as PCEF staff evaluated and scored for project viability elements, and then advanced the top six, or advanced those where at least 60% of total available points were met. And then 18 proposals went forward to the review panel, which was composed of 3 PCEF committee members, so 3 of you, as well as 3 BPS staff members, who then scored the applications on those elements of coalition strength, community engagement, and project benefits in different areas. And so we, in implementing the scoring approach, really looked to the guidance that we provided going in to then develop that. Then we can go to the next slide. And so this is where, Sam, I guess based on time, we can either go into the approach that we we took to developing the portfolio and then go through the applications, or that we're recommending for advancing, or we could take a short break. Which should we do?
Tracy, what do you think? Should we go ahead and take the break now?
I would say, let's take a break, Sam, and shorten the break a bit, come back as scheduled at 7:10, because there's a lot to cover. So if we could take a short break, James, and come back at 7:10 sharply, and you resume.
All right, sounds good. All right, we'll get ready to bring everybody back in about a minute here. All right, well, we'll get started again then, and hope you had a good short break. So just want to briefly talk about the staff recommendation and note that this is a staff recommendation for a portfolio of 10 projects to move forward to the next phase of application. And the approach that we took to developing this portfolio is one that, again, as we said, really focuses on elevating projects that have high viability of completion by 2029. And we feel good about the prospects for these projects, that they're solid and that they have a clear path forward. Also, we took a similar approach to that we take within community responsive grants, where we looked across different PCEF eligible funding areas and brought in the top scoring proposals across those areas, recognizing that approach does let us balance different opportunities and different types of projects and advances for consideration. Again, not necessarily explicitly for funding, but at least for consideration, a range of different project areas, and not just clean energy and transportation projects, but which often have the best opportunity to score highly in some of the project benefits or carbon emissions reduction areas. And so this portfolio approach kind of broadens that opportunity for consideration. For areas that also historically within the program have been under-resourced and have potentially really high impact in terms of mitigation or co-benefits or additional community impact or benefits. And so I guess without further ado, let's show the list, Sam. So these are the 10 proposals that we're recommending to move forward for further full application, and I'll briefly just name them, and then what we have a little bit of time, and I'll go through just about a minute or two per application to talk through what the funding amount is, what some of the partnership approaches are, and the description of project and benefits. And just want to note that, you know, throughout these projects, while you see the applicant name, a lot of these have sometimes dozens of different community partners and different organizations and coalitions working together that propose the project. Others, it's a smaller, more core group of organizations that were involved in it. But what you see is the entity that applied, and then in the next slides, you'll see the full coalition. But the organizations that applied and are being recommended to move forward to the next phase are Bonneville Environmental Foundation, Multnomah Educational Service District, or MESD, Energy Trust of Oregon, Prosper Portland, the TriMet 82nd Avenue Project, Portland Bureau of Transportation, Bureau of Fleet and Facilities, Community Development Corporation of Oregon, also known as Rockwood CDC, in the workforce development category, Work Systems Inc., and then in the other climate projects, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability Clean Industry Community Program. So now we'll go through and I'll be able to describe them a little bit more in detail and go through those 10 applications. So the first one is Bonneville Environmental Foundation, an amount requested of a little over $47 million in a solar energy project called Empowering PDX. It really seeks to partner with the Port of Portland in deploying community solar, solar plus storage, and EV charging across a number of different port properties with projects that both serve low-income individuals and households through community solar, as well as serve the needs and resilience of port facilities and provide electric vehicle charging opportunities for workers who work at the Port of Portland. And largely, this is around PDX Airport, but there's also some additional sites nearby that are owned by the port. And you can see some of the benefits there. They estimate that they can serve over 1,200 BIPOC and or low-income households through the community solar portion of that project proposal. Go ahead and go to the next one. So the next one, Multnomah Educational Service District, is a coalition of a number of the large major school districts in the Portland area, as well as the coalition of communities of color. A funding request of $100 million, so right at the top of our eligibility. And this is really seeking to make investments that improve the HVAC or the heating and cooling systems of different public schools within Portland, energy efficiency equipment throughout those facilities, improving the building envelope, including windows and insulation, and also doing some green infrastructure or schoolyard tree planting and landscaping. And they have developed a scope of work for each of the sites that they've proposed. I will note also, what we have listed here as clean energy is really the primary funding area for each project. We've defined it into primary funding area, though a lot of these projects do have elements of either workforce development or green infrastructure, other pieces of PCEF eligible areas that they brought into their application. So this is one of those where it's primarily energy efficiency, but with some regenerative ag and green infrastructure. I'll go ahead and go to the next one. So the next one is Energy Trust of Oregon, and this is an application requesting $55 million. The coalition includes Apano Community Energy Project, SEI, Oregon Solar Energy Education Fund, as well as Oregon Department of Energy, really as a co-funder in this. They wouldn't be, Oregon Department of Energy would not be receiving funding, but would rather be leveraging funding available from the state to bring in additional solar generation for both community solar as well as solar plus storage and individual rooftop solar on low-income households, being able to provide those benefits of resilience, lower energy bills, and also with a workforce development component to diversify the range of people working on solar projects within Portland. Go ahead and go to the next one. So the next is Prosper Portland, also in the clean energy category, or a request of 54.7 or almost $54.8 million in a partnership with Constructing Hope, Oregon Tradeswomen Related Inc., PGE, Portland Bureau of Transportation, and Portland Housing Bureau. This is the Broadway Corridor Phase 1 project down at the former U.S. Post Office site in downtown Portland, and is a proposal that would create both middle-income development, some affordable housing development, all to be net zero energy and very energy efficient, as well as improvements for green infrastructure on new streets that would be created throughout that multi-block area, and a element of active transportation and a cycle track to connect different parts of the multimodal vision for that district. Also, some elements with partners consisting of workforce training and job development with some of those community coalition partners. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And the next application, our first in transportation decarbonization, would be the TriMet 82nd Avenue project. And this project is done in coalition with the 82nd Avenue Coalition, consisting of Oregon Walks, Apano, Unite Oregon, Verde, as well as with public agencies, including Metro and PBOT. And this project seeks to really improve that high-capacity bus lane vision of 82nd Avenue with transit signal prioritization, new expanded stations for people waiting for buses and being able to have cover over all of those, as well as additional investments in sidewalk expansion and street trees to provide canopy throughout that corridor, and also additional cooling opportunities and workforce development opportunities in doing the jobs associated with those improvements on the corridor. And it's an amount requesting, or the amount of the request is $67 million there. The next one is an application led by Portland Bureau of Transportation, but in coalition with a large number of organizations that I couldn't actually list here due to space, but Oregon Walks and their coalition members, which included 3 different school districts, 9 different individual school parent-teacher associations, 7 neighborhood associations, the Portland Association of Teachers, and 11 nonprofits and community-based organizations. The amount requested here is $60 million, and this project is intended to really create that linkage of safe pedestrian access throughout our city, particularly around and near schools, but also serving generally people who live and walk in the area, and creating increased active mobility and really activation of those neighborhood streets as well. Also, there's a green infrastructure element to this one as well, looking to create not just sidewalks, but also plant additional large form street trees. And this is really focused largely on East Portland in terms of their prioritization, but they would operate kind of citywide. And the next one is an application by the city's Bureau of Cleaning Facilities in coalition with the Portland Community College and Portland Community College Foundation. This transportation decarbonization project is seeking $50.8 million and really is intended to help the city fleet operations develop the infrastructure they need for transportation electrification and maintenance of all of the city fleet operations in their move to a new Swan Island facility away from what's known as the Kirby Garage, where they currently do maintenance and repair of vehicles. And so this is in line with the city's vision of electrifying our entire fleet of vehicles, and also is connected to a workforce development approach in coalition with our partners to both expose people to new career opportunities and train up their workforce for both electrification and vehicle maintenance, electric vehicle maintenance trades, as well as for energy efficiency trades that would be supportive of that. So it's a combination of enabling transportation decarbonization and also workforce development. We'll go to the next one. So this one is a regenerative agriculture project from the Community Development Corporation of Oregon in partnership, which is also, as I mentioned before, known as Rockwood CDC, in coalition with Outgrowing Hunger, Play, Grow, Learn, Kindness Farm, East County Community Health, and Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District, as well as Metro. And so this $20 million request is for a foodways corridor, which would look to purchase and develop permanent ownership of some large parcels of land that are in East Portland that are currently in danger of commercial redevelopment or being used for warehouse space or other commercial use, and would do both habitat restoration as well as planting trees and creating wildlife habitat, and then creating opportunities for farming within those large areas while still providing access to the public, and essentially creating parks that can also serve as food production zones within East County. And this is part of kind of a multi-year approach to then also acquire some properties that are outside of Portland, but this would be the areas within Portland that are being sought funding for. Go ahead and go to the next one. So this application from Work Systems, Inc. is in coalition with a large number of organizations in collaboration, including 6 labor unions and their respective training programs, with TriMet, with Portland General Electric, Port of Portland, Prosper Portland, 6 different energy or industry-related trade organizations, 15 nonprofit and community-based organization partners, and 3 different educational institutions. This request of $35.2 million is intended to really help the PDX Clean Energy High Road Training Partnership, seeks to really expand a lot of the existing clean energy workforce opportunities, and to target those in expansion of different elements of career coaching, energy-related training, paid work experience, and career exploration opportunities, and then matching with clean energy industry employers to build that pipeline or river of workers into these trades and into different clean energy sectors. And we'll go to the last one, which is an application from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability in coalition with Neighbors for Clean Air, as well as the PDX Clean Industry Network, which consists of Prosper Portland, PSU, Columbia Corridor Association, Work Systems, Energy 350, OSU, the OMIC Research and Development, and then the Center for Sustainable Infrastructure. This request of $24.5 million seeks to do some analysis of opportunities for industrial emissions reduction, and then implementation of those projects that have the most benefit, and really looking at both greenhouse gas emissions reduction, as well as co-pollutants or other air pollutants, and really kind of taking a circular economy view of waste creation, while also delivering benefits and workforce development to the communities that are adjacent to those facilities. And so I'll note too that industrial focused work is not something that we've funded much or really at all in the past, and this is a new type of funding opportunity that can have significant benefit. And then I think we are on to discussion and questions. And yeah, I don't know what order we want to take these in, and I'll let Sam, I guess, or Tracy call on folks here.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, James, for that overview. I do want to know, I think you may have just coined the phrase a workforce river versus a workforce pipeline. I will note that clean water pipes are good. They're good infrastructure, so they don't have to be other forms of pipe. They can be clean water pipes and workforce pipes. But yeah, I just want to sort of know and one, I think typically we've historically have acknowledged public comments. So I do want to just take the time to know and just acknowledge folks who turned out to publicly testify around this process. I think as Sam noted here earlier, I think the need is great. Clearly we have folks who are very passionate about PCEF and the program, but also passionate about transforming things like their rivers, their streets, their roads, their schools, to meet the climate challenge and to protect their communities, their children. And it's difficult, I will say, to go through a process and review every single application. So I just want to note that there's that sort of toggle between how we balance the demonstrated need and I think the capacity to read and review these applications. And so one thing that really heartened me with a lot of the so far comments that folks have made has been about the opportunity, whether they be a parent, an elected official, head of an organization, just a chance to hear from these testimonies, just that collaboration, that opportunity for folks to collaborate. And I think that felt like, again, the spirit of this application. But again, I think we are here to make tough decisions. And, for many folks who have testified in support of the Frog Ferry, that's just an application we did not review. And as you can see, it's not being proposed for the LOI phase. I will here transition to just the full committee. And I just want to note a few things here that we just reviewed from the slides. As you will notice, the slides are suggesting that this is a staff recommendation. It's not an LOI review committee recommendation. I know Megan sent out a letter discussing this a bit length in her letter, but what I will say here is we had a chance to review some of these applications and we had the ability to score them. I think there was an expectation that we as a committee would be able to deliberate and vote for what would be a recommendation here. I think we were on two different pages between us and staff. What I will further note is as we were discussing the eligibility for these projects, and I think it's really important for applicants and the committee and the broader public to know, is we did not publish the scoring criteria for the LOI phase. And why is that important? It is important to be very transparent in any grant making process, how we're going to score projects, how we're going to determine eligibility and viability. So if the main barrier for an application to be reviewed by us as a committee, whether it be an LOI committee or what will subsequently be the full committee review for a full application, the first barrier you got to get to is project viability in addition to eligibility. So if you want to know how you cross that line, how you cross that threshold, I think we would all agree project scoring is going to be very important. How do you score? How do you remain competitive? And so that has been sort of my critique to staff. And what I think will just be my critique for you all to consider is those things matter, because if we say we're going to measure these projects, we should be transparent about how we measure those projects. And that allows the public to hold us accountable to how we score those projects and then how we determine and make those recommendations. That is very important because it holds us accountable. The public eye holds us accountable to that. And I think we missed a bit of the mark there. What I would encourage us to consider as a committee, and I've already flagged this for staff, is it should be pretty clear how we're going to score these projects in the full application phase. And it should be pretty clear how we're making our final recommendation before it goes to council. What was unclear in this process, as I noted again, was, yeah, how do we come down to the final 10? We rushed this. I'll note one application, Work Systems Inc.'s application, was not included because it was earlier deemed as ineligible, which was a mistake. We fixed that. Volunteer committee members highlighted that. We got the review. Another mistake that was made, well, I don't think it was a mistake. The application for Prosper Portland's application is here. That was not originally part of the original 9. That was being recommended here. It was a high scoring application, yes. But as I noted, we did not get the chance to be deliberated. Why Prosper Portland's application was included was not because us as a volunteer committee asked for it to be included. It's because I think city leadership asked for it to be included. And so I think this is, for me, very important to be clear with the committee is what is our role as the committee? What is the role for staff? And what is the role of city council when we make the next step of recommendations? And I think it should be pretty clear if, we say, hey, the top 3 scoring applications are going to be what determines what will be recommended. Great. We should be clear on that. If it's going to be a committee vote, that should be additionally clear on the recommendation. If it's going to be a staff recommendation, that should be clear and transparent before we get to the next full application phase. And I think the folks who benefit the most out of this will be the applicants, and it'll be the program itself, because we're able to maintain our integrity through the process. Process is important. So are outcomes. Outcomes are important, obviously, because there are folks who really want to see transformation in their communities. But I just want to sort of challenge us in the committee to be just clear-eyed and transparent about this. Transparency around process is important for us because that's how we hold staff and the program accountable. And it allows us to hold even city council accountable to its role. So I just want to sort of note some key important distinctions that's really important for me as a committee member who's part of the LOI review phase. There are clearly some great and important applications for us to review. What was really important is just the integrity of the process and the transparency, and for us to be clear each step of the process, how we are making determinations for full recommendations. I'll stop there. As again, I'll note, there are some great applications. There are some additionally great applications we didn't get to review because of project viability scores. And I'll say, again, if it was clear what the scoring rubrics were for the public, I would assume that the scoring or responses from applicants would have changed. But again, now we're discussing about that retroactively. So I will pause there, but just want to sort of highlight my concerns and just make some key notes about what's been presented so far.
Tracy?
Yes, thank you, Ramses, for those very impassioned comments. And James, thank you so much for the overview. I'd like to disclose a conflict of interest, given my leadership role at Energy Trust of Oregon, and Energy Trust of Oregon being one of the proposed 10. I would like to recuse myself from the entirety of voting and also recuse myself from any discussion on the Energy Trust proposal, but I would like to retain the ability to make comments on any of the other further proposals that were submitted, should I have an opportunity to share those thoughts. That's it.
Thank you, Tracy. Maria?
Sure, thanks. I'm following Ramfis's comments as one of the other reviewers from the committee who volunteered to do this. I echo a lot of Ramfis's comments. I personally don't think we're ready to move on to the full application phase, and I know that this delay could be worrying for some applicants. And I know while I'm asking for the Collaborating for Climate Action program to make corrections, I also know that I'm asking this while I've resigned from PCEF. So that task isn't going to be for me to take on anymore, although I would love to if I could still serve, but I just can't serve on the committee anymore. And I want to acknowledge all the effort put into this. And there were clearly several high scoring projects that are undeniably high impact. And they really were meant for this program. And they're also deserving of funding now or in the near future. I think there was enough alignment between staff and committee reviewers to advance some of those projects, maybe just by chance, especially the ones with urgency, like the transit project on 82nd. But I also want to emphasize that it's worth noting right now and discussing as a committee that I had enough concern about the quality of the process and the quality of the viability, eligibility, and the viability of the phases that took place before these proposals got to the committee reviewers. And we discussed this with the staff. We can decide, I think, to hold off and look more closely at the projects for viability or move forward, acknowledging that this process still has so much room for serious correction, and also being transparent, as Ramfi said, with the shortcomings and gaps in the process, namely, just staff viability scoring and the quality of the scoring sheet itself, the formatting and the organization of the tools and documents that we used, and really the need for uniformity among scoring with staff and scoring with the volunteer committee members. I just want to raise some of those things. There are a lot of like minor and major details, but I think enough for us to say, hey, let's raise those speed bumps, as we've said before. And I want to toss it back for everybody to discuss that, given some of the comments that Ramfius and I shared and the ones Megan had emailed to all of you.
Faith?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Maria and Ranfis and Megan, who's not here, but for just all of the work that you did to support this review process as well. I know that it's a big lift, so thank you for that. I only want to jump in quickly, one, just to kind of, I think Sam started us off this way, and Ranfis and Maria, you both shared this as well. It's just like how incredible it is to see the number of applications that LOIs that came in, and just the kind of the groundswell of innovation and interest in really major projects. So I just want to thank any of the community members who are still listening in to this call, who put forth the effort to bring those innovative ideas. So I didn't know what to expect at all, this level of interest when this first rolled, given just the timeline and the just the large, right? The large nature and the what I anticipated to have been a requirement, that these ideas were already well on their way. They weren't brand new ideas, right? Because in order to put a coalition together, a collaboration together, for a project this size, I think it's had to been in the hopper for a while. So just really excited for that. Ramfis, the only comments I wanted to make was in response to a couple things you said. I wrote down, we did not review the applications, and I just want to be sure. I was confused when you said that. Clearly, someone reviewed staff reviewed applications, so I don't want any person who submitted an application to think that no one reviewed their application. that's clearly someone did, but the committee members didn't have a chance to review everything, only those that passed the eligibility review.
Yeah, correct. So I just want to clear the record. Yeah, just to be clear,
Yeah.
the LOI committee, the volunteers, who came were non-staff. We did not review every single LOI application.
Right.
All of the applications were screened by staff using and reviewing a viability score criteria there. So what we as a committee did review, which I think was highlighted in the slide accurately, was we reviewed 18 LOI applications from that met their viability score. All I was highlighting, we only reviewed again those. My concern was that the scoring rubric for both viability score, but just overall the scoring rubric for what we would be reviewing was never shared publicly. But yeah, to applicants.
I just want to make one comment on that too, because it was really important to you. You brought it up as kind of your second major point, that the scoring criteria, that rubric itself, wasn't published with the LOI application. And I do think I really join you in believing that process matters and that public process really matters, and that is our role as a committee member to make sure that there is a transparent process. So thank you for that. I don't share your concern relative to the scoring criteria, the exact scoring criteria being published with an LOI, because I think all of that criteria was set forth in the LOI, just not the scoring rubric itself, but the priorities and the way in which the eligibility and the verification, to me, seems like it was clearly set forth in all of the public manifestation of the request or the invitation to submit LOIs. So I just wanted to share. I agree with you on process. I'm not concerned that there wasn't a scoring rubric, and I've frankly never seen one associated with an LOI. Not that we can't be better than anything I've ever seen before, but
well, I'll share a lesson learned. So what you'll see, if you were to assume an LOI would be 10 pages, right? 20 pages, we would have said that's pretty reasonable, maybe even less than 10. We were reviewing, some of these applications were 50, 60. There were no page limits for. So I think what we were dealing with here was a natural tension between very thoroughness in responses, and then of course probably folks balancing how much should I put in an LOI, because they're telling me brevity is good. And so if you or me or anyone reviewing, we probably have a bias for more comprehensive information, because we're dealing with even if there's an LOI phase, a lot of information is probably better because we're dealing with millions of dollars here. And so if I were applying for a grant and I knew that just the project team description, less about like GHG emissions or other things, if I knew project team description was weighted 15 points out of 30, I probably would be put more time in describing my project team. There were applications where you could see they had a pretty diverse and pretty credible project teams, but the descriptions, you had to pause yourself and like, why did they not provide a more in-depth description? The only rational thing you could sort of say is like the only logical thing you could say of why they excluded sharing the biography of, say, said architect or said contractor and their history of performance is someone really must have missed the bar in knowing that that was worth 15 or whatever amount of points. So that's the part where I think we were I personally was wrestling knowing that there were some pretty clear, good applications. It just was like, why didn't they fill out and be more descriptive? And I think if you were to ask, they probably would have said, we thought it was an LOI. I thought you wanted less information. So that's the part I think it's a lesson learned. Like, yeah, I think there are different kinds of expectations, but I I hear your viewpoint on that, and that's just where I think I disagreed with Megan as well. Is like you're gonna run with different expectations on this, and the only way to level set expectations is clarity on scoring and where the weights are in every step of the way. It's just tough. That's my I think lesson learned on this process.
Thank you, and thanks for acknowledging my perspective on that as well. And I think I just will say I want to join you in when this slate of when applicants, when LOI submittal people, sorry, I'm forgetting language here, get invited for a full application, I do agree that the process should be clear. So I just wanted to join you in that. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Paul?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the committee members for all their hard work that contributed to this process, as well as the staff and others. I also want to thank those who testified tonight and also the written testimony that was provided. I read all that earlier today. So thank you to all. This has been an enlightening discussion for me, hearing about the process. I also started asking questions earlier this week, asking for the scoring, asking questions about the viability threshold. And I have some maybe concerns or maybe requests for more information. It could be provided tonight or at a later time about how that whole viability threshold process went. How did we get to yes or no? Is it based on scoring of some kind or other criteria? I also want to acknowledge that there are several government grants being advanced and a lot less community-based organization-led grants. And I saw language earlier among a committee member questioning whether or not there's a bias against CBOs of some kind, and maybe not intentional, but still I want to acknowledge that it was brought up earlier, and I'd like to explore that further. So in terms of process, now I'm concerned about moving forward. I want to move forward, but now I have concerns and willing to listen to others as well. I do have some questions or maybe recommendations about how we move forward in the next step of advancing the applications for a full proposal. I'd sure like to see more details in advance with process and format. What kinds of metrics are they going to be evaluated with? Specifically, and obviously, carbon reduction and sequestration and the workforce development impact. I'd like to see really clear metrics so they can compare the applications to each other, not just somebody's opinion of how well they wrote the proposal, but actually what is going to be accomplished. This is a lot of money, and it's an awesome opportunity to really make progress towards reducing our impact on climate change. And I just want to make sure that we're advancing those proposals to a final grant that really do have the greatest impact. And also I'd like to see more in-depth description of their partnerships with nonprofit community-based organizations. There were very clear differences amongst the applications. Some identified that they would be subgranting to community-based organizations. Others simply got a letter of support. And you can tell by reading the proposal that there really is no involvement after that. So, I'd just like to see that explored much further in the full application. And earlier this year, we supported, but several city proposals advanced to multi-year funding. And I'd like to ensure that there's no overlap amongst those ideas with these proposals. And in terms of the conversation we just had just a few minutes ago about page limits, I have participated in other grant applications with the city, and they do have page limits by section, limiting the number of pages for this section, number of pages for this section. That way we don't have the bias of somebody who produced a 100-page application getting more points, whereas somebody who submitted the same kind of information but only in 50 pages getting less points. So just putting things more on a level playing field, I think, would be very helpful. I know that was a lot, and I wrote these notes out. Happy to share them with this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Robin, you're next, and then Sam, you'll be next to respond. There have been quite a few questions. So Robin first, and then Sam.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Sorry, I have a bit to say here. So first, for the record, I do have an active contract with Prosper Portland, which is a collaborating partner in at least 2 of these proposals. The scope of my contract does not involve any climate work. And I also have a collaborative partnership relationship with the Bonneville Environmental Foundation and Energy Trust of Oregon, but none of them involve any financial transactions in nature. So given that these relationships, do not involve any of these proposals, I don't feel it's necessary to recuse myself, but from these deliberations, but I feel it's appropriate to, share this with everybody in the spirit of transparency. So that's the first disclosure. The next point I want to raise is something that I think Paul touched upon, and I have a question or comment about independence. BPS is an applicant. BPS also houses the PCEF team, and I think this could create a potential conflict of interest or at least undue influence in the evaluation of that proposal. Plus, if there's anything that I learned in the past year here on the PCEF committee, is that money and politics are invariably intertwined. And because we have quite a few proposals from other city agencies, I'm concerned about some of the political pressure that may be applied in the review process. I get the sense that there may have been already getting up to here. I don't know, but I just feel it. But I think as we go into the review process, there could be some more pressure. And keeping in mind that this is something that we did not have to contend with in the community responsive grants, because those are always nonprofits or CBOs. So my question is, what steps can we take to mitigate that influence or pressure so that we can arrive at a decision that most closely aligns with the original ballot initiatives and our guiding principles? And I'm not suggesting that we address this here and now, but would be interested to know if there are others that are, interested in, having a follow-up conversation on this. And then my final comment is, is this process perfect? No. But considering the startup circumstances, that we're not making a funding decision today, and that there was about 13-to-1 ratio of applications request of funding, and there appears to be many solid proposals, I'm okay with a non-perfect process. I'm generally okay, so long as we address some of the concerns that were raised here in the next phase of the review process. So that's my comments for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Sam?
Thank you all. I appreciate it. One, yes, there will be a moment here, and I think the reality is that we have a tremendous amount of really wonderful projects requesting more funding than we have available. That inherently is going to always create challenging decisions. I think one for committee members, and I should have said this from the outset, this was a different process. It is a different process than we take with our community responsive grants. We're not heading to city council on the other side of this, and you all know this with 7180 projects. We're heading with 3, maybe 4. And given the state of play right now, it was critical, and we said that from the outset, that these projects we need to have really strong clarity and confidence that these projects can be completed by 2029, that the budgets make sense, that there's incredibly clear scopes, that the project teams are capable of doing the work. Yes, coalitions are great, but those key elements, particularly when we're talking tens, 20, 30, $100 million, needed to be there. And so, yes, there is certainly a greater scrutiny that we brought to that. And I just want to acknowledge that it is different from our community responsive grants, given that there's a different expectation on how we build capacity within community. And that's not to say that there's differences, Paul, to your point around community. I just want to acknowledge the difference in process and how we approach these. 2, I do want to name that for projects of this scale, You mean James met certainly that we'd been meeting with our planning staff to understand those projects that had those influences, but we'd certainly also met with our PBOT staff, our Prosper Portland staff, others to make sure we had a significant amount of understanding so that as projects of significant scale have oftentimes dependencies, we needed to make sure that we understood those dependencies, that we understood how those barriers showed up, what barriers those were there, because oftentimes that isn't obviously clear when you look at a proposal. And so I think that those are some of the pieces that we certainly took into viability, and those are information that, and often in many instances, unfortunately, are not always available at large or necessarily show up on the LOI. I think the last thing I would just say is we will certainly have clear scoring criteria for the full application. Absolutely agree with that there. I think I appreciate the 70, 80 some odd folks that showed up to both of our information sessions during the application window, in which we were abundantly clear about needing detailed enough information around the budget, the project teams, the scope, the timeline. Those are all the same information that we asked in the application, in addition to stating the high level criteria that the proposals would be evaluated on. We said, we need your budget, we need your project team, we need your scopes, we need to understand your funding sources. All of that information was there. I think we will acknowledge that we should have had a page limit would have probably helped us all out. That probably would have helped us all out because we did get variable lengths. But as you all will see, even within the top 10, there are both applications or LOIs in there that are both shorter and longer. And so while we received that, it was important for us to be able to, with clarity, understand the projects, their scopes, the teams, and their ability to implement those. And so there is absolutely always going to be rooms for tweaking. I don't know that we've ever run a perfect process. I think we're always figuring out how do we improve our processes. And this is another one of those moments. And so I just want to acknowledge that, appreciate the really hard work that went into this, certainly by staff, by our committee members, our other BPS review panel members, and appreciate the folks there. And acknowledge that there's been a tremendous amount of good work here and good work that we feel excited about.
For committee members who haven't shared comments, is there anyone else who would like to share before we move to the action item portion of this agenda item? All right, let's move forward. So here, the draft proposal for the committee, and I will read it. I propose that the PCEF committee recommend the 10 proposals outlined in the staff recommendation to advance to full application stage for the Collaborating for Climate Action Funding opportunity. So that is what the proposal for the action item, the vote is. And next, if we could move to the review of the process for voting. So here it's a modified consensus decision-making process. I won't read this slide if everyone just takes a few seconds to review it. And I believe, and Sam, please confirm we need 5 affirmative decisions on this action item. Is that correct?
Correct, because Tracy, because we're anticipating that you will not be considered either. You'll be abstaining from the decision altogether, and so that it functionally it's functioning as the 7 committee members are present, since Tracy is not going to be taking either an affirm, stand aside, or a no decision on this.
Okay. And Sam, is there another slide, a next slide?
I think it's just going back to the proposal.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is just start with each committee member. Maria, you're first up on the screen. I'll start with you.
I'm a no vote.
Tracy, I think we need somebody to move.
Okay, thank you, Faith. So can I have someone who will make a motion to proceed with this draft proposal?
Yeah, I'd be happy to read the motion. I propose that the PCEF committee recommend the 10 proposals outlined in the staff recommendation to advance the full application stage for the Collaborating for Climate Action funding opportunity.
Thank you, D'Angelo. Is there a committee member that seconds the proposal?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Faith. So back to you, Maria.
My vote is no, on the 10 proposals recommended.
D'Angelo,
I vote yes.
Robin,
Can I propose an amendment? Or how's that work?
I will defer to Sam on that.
I guess.
Let me verbalize what, is this a vote or a temperature check?
I went straight to the vote because we had discussion.
I think that's a little bit different than a temperature check. I actually had a question too, but I'm willing to make a vote if I have to, but based on the conversation, I might change my vote. So my recommendation is actually to, now that we've had the first and the second, we could just go into discussion phase and then go through the process of voting.
Okay, discussion then.
Yes.
Robin, you said you had a potential amendment.
Well, I think, I guess my amendment is that we somehow have, there was a lot of issues raised. And if we decide to move forward, I'd like to have the opportunity for the committee to engage in how do we address some of those concerns raised before we, open the door for full applications. So that, we address the concerns that have been raised by many of the fellow members here. So I don't know if that's really a proposal, but I would like to have some engagement before we move forward, if that's what we decide to do.
Sam, would you like to respond?
Yeah, we have a placeholder. We haven't let this go since calendaring with folks in summer has been difficult, but we have a placeholder for a committee meeting on September, I believe, 19th. And so we can come back Thursday, September 19th. So we can come back then and use that as an opportunity to dive in further on the next steps, if that's what folks want to do. Before essentially soliciting the proposals for the next phase.
So Sam, you're saying then the proposal, there would not be a vote taken tonight, that it will be taken at the...
No, well, we would still ask for the vote to be, I think we would still seek the vote to be taken tonight. And then what we would do is gearing up for the next round, we would come back. So to address the concerns on, as we're bringing in proposals for the next round, what do we want to make sure we have both clarity on in terms of both the process, the scoring criteria, et cetera. And so we would tee that up and be ready to have that up for discussion in the next round. Otherwise, we'd keep this lingering until that conversation. So,
all right, Ranfis?
Yeah, appreciate that update. I think, I'm, I know it's inadvertent, but I would have preferred us doing the temperature check to problem solve so we can tee up a good vote. That's what we've done in the past. I don't know why we skipped the temperature check. What I will say here is, I think if we had made an amendment to what's being proposed here to say, hey, like all this, but if we can be pretty clear around scoring rubric and ability, one, I think just making sure the scoring rubric's clear. Two, making pretty sure it's clear that it is the committee and a committee vote that determines the final applications that are recommended to council. That would have been almost sufficient for my end, but I think we skipped that process. And so I just want to say, hey, like I would have appreciated that courtesy. The third piece here, and I think Sam noted this, is, and I'll just say my prevailing value here, we have great applications. That is not the problem. It's the integrity of the process. And transparency is important to us. It's important to everyone. that is where we fall on integrity. And so the way I think that Sam made it pretty clear how we vet projects, we should be vetting projects and making sure these are top of the line projects. What is inadvertent here is when we have city planners, city bureaus, all reviewing applications, both government projects and nonprofit projects, and saying, hey, these projects are viable. I'm just going to say from integrity process, we should be learning from this because there is a disparity. And so what I would say is like, what do we do for those nonprofit applications that we're going through that review process and we're being told, hey, your project's not scoring high in viability? I just raised as to say there's got to be a third component here that we're offering an opportunity to engage with nonprofits to say, hey, guys, like you guys did not score well in viability. Tell us, we want to tell you why. Please offer us an opportunity to tell us, did we get this wrong? So it's more of like a fact-finding mission. I don't want to make it so cumbersome, but that's where I would have appreciated at least having more of a conversation on the temperature check and just that courtesy amongst committee members. But
and
again,
Ramfis, I want to acknowledge that wasn't a PCEF staff decision. That was when I called for additional discussion when there wasn't any, then I went to the vote. So I want to acknowledge that was my error.
Yeah, and Tracy, I understand. I think, I'm talking to my, just colleague to colleague with our committee members just about this piece, but I understand. Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, the process did get a little discombobulated. But we can find a way to move forward. It is a little bit after 8 o'clock. I still would like to have a better explanation about the viability threshold. I'm just not ready to vote until I get that explanation.
Yeah.
I think the public really deserves more transparency in this process because I don't feel like I got it yet. And if I haven't got it yet as a committee member, I don't think the public's got it yet, especially around the scoring. So while I encourage more conversation tonight, I am willing to put forward a motion to table until the September 19th committee meeting. Because I think we're going to run out of time, and I for one, I'm uncomfortable voting until I get some more of this information presented to me as a committee member. And I don't want you to think I'm not supporting these proposals, but I just don't think we're ready as a committee to vote tonight. That's it. Still could pass. I just don't think we're
ready. Faith? Faith?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I think Paul's last comment probably changes this comment, so I'm thinking about it for a second. I think I just wanted to acknowledge that what both Ranfis and Robin asked for us to actually dive into the process concerns and opportunities for enhancement for the next phase, I think I think I agree with that completely. And the September 19th sounds like a great option. And I don't think it makes, if we can get that acknowledgement here, I don't think it makes a change to this draft, this motion. But Paul, what you just said, I think is that you need more clarity before you can make a vote on these LOI recommendations. And if I'm adding it up, then, well, so I don't know if we need a vote tonight, but if we do, I think that your comment did not fall neatly into what I thought Ranfis and Robin were suggesting as possible solutions going forward. So
I think
we're babbling now.
Go ahead, Sam.
I think we can also quickly maybe potentially answer it, and James helped fill me in here. The viability was essentially, whereas eligibility, we took more of a binary approach. Is there clear emissions reductions? Can the projects be done by 2029? Is this does this project meet the minimum criteria? Have nonprofit partner, 8 years experience, etc. On the viability, we looked for projects scoring at least 60% of the total points available And they had to score that across really four criteria. It was, what is the clarity of the scope? What is the project team and their capacity, or their relevant experience on the project time? What is the timeline associated with the project, and is the timeline appropriate, and is the budget appropriate for the project? So those were the elements, Paul, that we used to score the project viability. And in order to move forward to the review panel, projects had to score at least 60. We sent projects that scored at least 60%. That materialized in 18 projects moving to the review panel. Obviously, I think that you can argue for more, you could argue for less, but we wanted to ensure that, one, we were starting out with projects that had a really strong viability, to ensure that when we get to this next phase, that we're starting with a strong group of projects where we get to dive further, deeper into, and get some more of that information, where we are going to be able to evaluate what are your greenhouse gas emissions outcomes, what are the number of folks you're going to be able to benefit, et cetera, but where we can call in that next level or layer of information.
Did the committee have the opportunity to review that analysis?
We did. We made those available to the review panel and encouraged folks to both spot check and connect with us. And we did have some of those discussions. Certainly, Megan took us up on that and had discussions around how we approach some of the viability review. And as you saw from the email, was satisfied with how we approached that. So we did share the entirety of all of the viability scores with the review panel.
Can I ask a question, Ramfis? Are you comfortable as a committee member? And Maria, you were there too, both of you. Are you comfortable with the analysis that the city made on the viability threshold? Either one of you?
Yeah, I won't speak for Maria. I think, go ahead, Maria, if you want to go first.
There were parts of it that I was comfortable with, but also enough that made us raise questions as we talked as a committee, or three of us in that space and with the staff. I think there were times that they did allow us to really see into the process a little bit more. But I think because maybe some of it is not as well documented to really track and trace our steps, it is hard to say. But I think it would have been difficult no matter what, even if they outlined all of that. There's so much in the foundation of the program that just makes us question, did we start off on the wrong foot altogether, that affected every turn we took afterward.
Yeah, I think I'll just say on my end, it was just which has been more of my point here today, which is, the project viability score, if that is the process, just be clear what is the process for project viability and how you're scoring that and evaluating it. That's the part that I think has just been clear. That's kind of where my standpoint is, just as we go into this next phase, just be clear about the scoring and evaluation phase, who's actually making the final recommendation to council, and then adding additional fact-finding mission from other groups, what we can learn from where we came up short in the process. I think that's my position on that question.
Okay, so we're still in the temperature check phase, and what I'm going to do is call on every committee member individually to make sure if there's additional questions or comments. So Maria?
I don't have any other comments.
D'Angelo?
I have no comments.
Robin?
I'm okay with this proposal, so long as we are able to address some of the concerns that were raised.
Faith?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Ramfis?
Yeah, no, I was pretty clear on my concern.
And Tracy, bypassing you because you've recused yourself. Paul?
I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable about voting for this. I would like to get to a space where the committee is reviewing the framework for evaluating full proposals at some point. Obviously, that's not going to be tonight. I don't know if we need a full meeting 19th to do that. But other than that, I have no further comments.
Alicia?
I'm supportive of the request for transparency and additional conversation about the process at the September 19th meeting, but I'm comfortable moving forward with the vote tonight.
All right, thank you. So I would like to remind everyone that D'Angelo made a motion to approve this draft proposal, and that motion was seconded by Faith. So at this time, I will do a roll call and take a vote on the proposal. Maria?
My vote is no.
D'Angelo?
My vote is yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Faith?
Approve.
Ranfis?
I will abstain on this vote, just given, I think, 5 points. I think my vote would change if depending on what the discussion is on the 19th.
I couldn't hear you, Ranfis. I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part, Ranfis? I couldn't hear you.
I was just saying, hey, my 3 points, but I would have amended the language here. Transparency in scoring rubric, clarity around the committee making the final recommendation to and creating a fact-finding mission from NGOs from how this process went. Given at the time, I would have voted yes, but I'm going to abstain from this vote. I'm happy to make the amendment that would change my vote to a yes. But that's the,
can you please do that?
Paul, I think, can we do that if this vote doesn't pass?
Well,
because we're in the middle of a process.
Yeah, but you can change a motion, a sub motion. You can do that. You could also vote to table the motion until the 19th too, which I don't think is a bad option. I mean, it's just a couple more weeks, and in the meantime, we could address some of Bradley's concerns. How do you feel about that, Bradley's?
Yeah, if you want me, I'm happy to make a mid motion. Sorry, I'm happy to make a mid motion if folks are comfortable with that. I don't want to disrupt what's the current motion, but if it's a motion to amend the proposed language to include a requirement for transparency on the scoring rubric to full applicants, to include clarity that this committee will make the final recommendation to council for who is receiving full funding for their applications, or receiving funding for the applications. And then third, a fact-finding mission to hear from nonprofit organizations about this process that we could further flesh out on the 19th.
That's your sub motion. I will second. Is that your sub motion? I will second that.
So my question for you, Sam, we're in the middle of a motion. I would think that we would need to finish voting on this motion, but I'll defer to you, Sam, for protocol.
You know, we're in uncharted territory. I do not know. I think just for clarity, I think for clarity, because we've got to even capture the notes on. I'm not sure we captured what was this sub motion. I think for clarity, my recommendation, for clarity was go to the motion, and then if it's voted down, then draft the amended language fully, and then everyone read, and we can pull that up on the screen, and then have everyone go back through and do the temperature check and the decision on the updated language, just so that everyone's clear.
Well, I'm
Okay.
comfortable making a motion to table until September 19th meeting too, which would end the conversation here.
So is that a no, Paul, on this motion?
No, I'm saying I'm willing to make a motion to table this until September 19th, which would end the conversation tonight on this motion. If it's seconded. I don't want
I
to.
would like to continue just to close out this motion.
Yeah, I guess to entertain the two sub motions, I'll just update my vote to no.
All right, and Paul,
No.
Alicia,
Yes.
so Sam, we have 3 no's and I'm just,
Four
Four
yeses.
yeses.
4 yeses. So this proposal does not move forward. So now I think this would be the moment to propose an alternative motion, if someone wants to make a proposal.
and Sam,
I mean, and we can also,
can that motion be put on screen so everyone sees what it is?
we can do that. Yeah.
Sam, what does it do to the timeline for I'm thinking especially the 5 years? Maybe it makes no difference at all for 2 weeks. What's it do to the timeline if we just postpone this for 2 weeks?
I think it depends on the nature of the motion and what implications there are for staff time. So I think we just in the immediate, I think we've got to circle back. We certainly we've got to circle back and check in and just walk through how this plays out and a few other actions. So I don't, Faith, unfortunately, have the direct answer for you on that. But in some ways, it depends on what the motion is.
Yeah, I would also note it might impact the amount of time that applicants have to prepare their full application.
Well, I think 2 weeks to get it right is not a bad option, but it's what, 8:22 right now. I don't think can we put this on the screen and vote on it tonight? I don't know. If it's what Rafi said verbally just a few minutes ago, I don't think that would be that hard to process either tonight or on the 19th.
Well, Paul, there are 2 different motions. It's my understanding, because Ramfi's, yours is delaying to the 19th, and Ramfi's had some additional areas he wanted to add to the proposal.
I mean, I'm happy to make the motion for my proposal, which was just an amendment to what's on here, which is that I propose that the PCEF committee recommend the 10 proposals outlined in the staff recommendation to advance to full application stage for the collaborating for climate action funding opportunity. That would also include proposal that would make the scoring criteria, evaluation criteria clear for all full applicants, invited full applicants. But it's clear that the committee makes the final recommendation to council for funding from this RFP, and that we would additionally include a fact-finding mission from a select group of NGOs about this process that we could further flesh out on the 19th.
I'll second that motion.
All right, and if we're following with the process, then I will go, Paul, I'll start with you for, I'll start with you, Maria, for temperature check. Or first discussion, then temperature check. So discussion on Ramfi's proposal that was seconded by Paul.
Sure, that's better.
So just if any committee members have discussion, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry, I'm raising my actual hand instead of my virtual hand. the second thing, clarify that the committee will provide final recommendation to city council. What is there a different understanding of that, Ranfis? I don't, that's not sticking with me.
Oh, I guess
You just want confirmation that that's true. That's already your understanding of what would happen, but that's confirmation of that.
sure. Yeah. the
Is that,
committee
I mean, that's where you're going? Okay.
Or we could
Well-
just strike out the clarify that and just say committee will provide final recommendation to council for funding from this RFP.
No, I was actually after the material piece, not the wording, was like, who else would recommend this to city council?
Well, there was a proposal that the committee, a set of proposals, the committee reviewed 18 of them. And I heard a comment earlier tonight, I think from Ramfis, that the city interjected and got another one added. So in terms of keeping this process clean, I like the language that is written on the screen here because it should be our work and not somehow influenced by other government leaders at the city.
All right. I mean, so we always provide a final recommendation to the city council. So I would like some clarity around that. And are you talking more about the slate that is presented for the committee for deliberation?
Well, Robin, I would clarify, we don't make final recommendations to council. We're not making a final recommendation to RFP3. It was a past practice, but that is not, we only make recommendations to council about the CIP.
Oh, okay.
So you were right a few years ago, but
okay. I got to get caught up, huh?
These are projects but no, you're still, Robin, you're still correct in that because these are additions, because these projects don't exist within the climate investment plan, that the committee does have a patent that can make a recommendation on the climate investment plan.
So, right, these are above and beyond the climate investment plan.
That's correct. It's not implementing the climate investment plan. These are adding to it.
Would it on the language here presented to us, if you replace the word final with the word the, does that help? Committee will provide the recommendation, or do we need
For
that
me,
now?
I'm fine with the language. I was just trying to figure out whether there was an alternative to the committee presenting a recommendation to city council. So this was a super helpful conversation. So for me, the language is fine as is.
Word final disappeared somehow. I don't know if you wanted that back. Artificial intelligence.
I think the place that we would
I
see
can put it back
clarity
in.
is, I think, just understanding what the fact-finding mission is. I think I want to be clear that that is not directing staff. Isn't that that the committee is taking that on as the committee and doing that work. I just want to be that's important for our workloads in this moment. That is not that is not being because in that context the committee is advisory and so it can. I just want to be clear there.
And I also just want to note that we, in our communication to applicants who are not selected to move forward, we have made the opportunity available later in the fall, have discussions and feedback with PCEF staff, but we recognize that, due to capacity, that will take a little bit of time to schedule those meetings. And so I don't, maybe to Sam's point, like between now and the 19th, if the expectation is that happens, that would be very difficult.
I don't think the expectation was to do that between now and the 19th, but I think the expectation was to further flesh out what that could look like the 19th. It's not to, and we all already having discussions with grantees about the process. I think we can find a medium, but my motion, the spirit of the motion is that we're as a body learning about this program and the balance from a CBO, NGO perspective.
Is there any additional discussion or comments? All right, I will go through the temp.
Faith had her
Oh.
actual hand up.
I can't
I'm
find
sorry.
my electronic one. I think we should get more clear on that last point then. I wonder if we want to, rather than say we're engaging in it, and to Sam's point, if this is the committee committing to engage in it, maybe we should say enable. So that if we decide we don't need a separate fact-finding mission from the kind of interviews that applicants are being offered, we're not committing ourselves to doing something and then failing. So enable might not be the right word, but engage sounds like we've just committed to do it. And I think we want to evaluate what kind of additional learning we can gain from nonprofits. Does that make any sense, or is that not strong enough? I'm not intending to remove the strength of it, just simply.
Well, I knew what engage in a fact-finding mission was. I'm not quite sure I know what evaluate learnings means. I see what I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah, I think the spirit would be at least having a committee window to be able to evaluate the experiences from nonprofits that were not selected from this round. That could be informative for future rounds.
Can you suggest some language or additional language, or if you want to see?
How about solicit feedback?
That's good.
Oh, that's so
Thank you.
easy and nice.
Well,
Renfeast, does that work for you? And then Paul, it sounds like you've got something.
no, I'm not going to say anymore. Thank you.
So there was a question regarding who was going to take on this action. Does that need to be clarified? Who will solicit the feedback?
As part of our normal course, we will solicit feedback, but that if that is going to differ, then I think to the extent that the committee wants to drive what that feedback process is, I would be clear that the committee will solicit feedback from nonprofits. So that it's just
I get the sense that some members of the committee would like to be involved with that standard process. So so it's probably not something different from what you all do, but just somehow engage maybe a subcommittee in that effort.
Are you suggesting a subcommittee of sorts?
Yeah, one off. I mean, not 20 meetings. It could just be one meeting. A group of committee members.
To me, it's not so important who does the solicitation for feedback. It's just that we as a committee get the information at some point. It's gathered. So it could be, to me, it could be a staff doing it as long as there's a report back to us.
So
if any committee members want to participate, they could.
We will gather feedback. So I think if that's there, we will be gathering feedback.
Does this capture though of at least the opportunity for committee members, if some of you all want to be a part of that process of getting feedback from nonprofits without requiring you to do that?
I like it. I think so.
Okay, any additional comments, questions before I take a temperature check? All right, Maria.
I'm okay with it.
D'Angelo?
I'm definitely okay with the change in language for providing opportunity for committee, so I can comfortably move forward with this.
Robin?
I'm good.
Faith?
I'm good.
Ramfis?
Yes.
Paul?
Like it.
Alicia?
I support it.
All right, so we have an amendment made by Ramfis. It was seconded by Paul, and now we will move to a vote. Starting again, Maria, with you.
I'm abstaining.
All right, D'Angelo,
I vote yes.
Robin,
I approve.
Faith,
Approve.
Ramfis,
Approve.
Paul,
Approve.
Alicia.
Approve.
All right, we have 6 yes and 1 abstain.
2 abstain. Well, 1 recused.
Oh, well, Tracy recused herself, right? Didn't mean to leave you out, Tracy. All right,
Okay.
so the amendment has been approved. All right,
Okay.
Sam, we're at the end of the meeting. Do you want to close us out?
We are most definitely at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Maria, for your last meeting. We are still working with Michael to do a proper celebration. And so we will make sure we have a proper time to celebrate and acknowledge, frankly, all of your contributions over the past almost 5 years here. So thank you, Maria. And we will have that opportunity to appropriately toast to you and all the work that you and you've contributed in time and contributed to the committee. Thank you, Maria.
All right, everyone, have a good
Thanks.
evening and thank you for participating tonight.
Night.
Thanks, all.
Thank you. Good night.